Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us in part A of our interview series. Today, we are joined with Team Alphabots from Fremont, California. Would you like to introduce yourself and which sub-team you're on?
Yeah, so my name is Mano, and I'm part of Team Alphabots 19639, and I'm the hardware captain.
Great. So, what do you think is something that rookie teams should know if they're very, very close to their competition, like a few weeks away or even a few days away?
Um, I'd say judging, like remembering your judging questions and things like that are probably the most crucial. Just making sure everyone's aligned on like the strategies and what their role is at the competition, and just going over like robot inspection and things like that, just last minute checks before going to comp.
Great. And were there any particular resources that you found useful when doing this?
I'd say mostly like the game manual. They have a good checklist. Um, and just in general, the FTC Discord is also a good place to look for if you have any questions right before competition or things like that.
Great. And what do you think are some of the awards that rookie teams should be aiming for that they should probably highlight in their portfolios?
Um, I'd say if your software is really good, um, I'd probably go for the Control Award. It's like a sub award where you still have to submit another like whole documentation and things like that. But that's a really good award to go for. From the hardware side, I believe there's a something to do with build. I'm not too sure of the word, but something to do with like the design of your robot and how innovative it is. So I think you should really like highlight those kind of key aspects, and of course inspire because
Right.
outreach is a big part of FTC, and it can go a long way. So it really like showing what all you've done for outreach throughout the season is really important.
So for rookie teams that may not know, which teams would be the ones that can advance to regionals in a competition?
Only inspire and maybe second inspire are the two awards that let you advance as any team, and then additionally you could advance through just winning the whole competition as a whole, being a finalist captain and winning through like your robot and how good
Yeah.
your robot is. And sometimes even like they put you in a lottery depending on, say you got third inspire or you came runners up in robot competition, then they might put you in a lottery, and if you get selected for regionals, then you get in
Right.
that way.
So kind of going a little bit more into that, is there anything that you should do like to protect your robot during the game? Would you recommend like buying sheets to put on the sides of the robot?
Like you're not going to be hitting a lot of the robots. Like it's kind of like fair play. People are just going to be like doing their own thing rather than trying to play defense or things like that. There might be instances where you play defense, but um, I think FTC is like kind of regulated that. So if you do play a lot of defense and say you do hit another team's robot, you get penalized heavily. So there's really no point in doing that. And I don't think there's really a need for protection. It's kind of just, yeah, it's kind of just like not a lot of hitting or anything like that.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. So on competition day, what can we expect like for the rundown to be from the beginning to the end?
So generally, I believe it's like very early in the morning. You get checked in, and then you go to your booth, which is generally like a table with like a power outlet or something there. And then um, after that, you set up your table, set up your booth, you put your robot on display, you set up your banner, poster board, anything you have to display. Um, and then you go for robot inspection. So they check off your robot, make sure you've fulfilled all the requirements, things like that. They give you a few stickers like the power button sticker and things like that. And then afterwards, you go to judging sessions, and it's generally like 10 to 15 minutes presentation, and then the judging questions, and then the actual game start, where you have 5 games each for qualifiers. And then if you do qualify for the next like playoff round, then you have, I'd say it's a best of three series, and then finals, and then yeah, that's about it. And then after that, there's just a lot of like, then there's the award ceremony, and then you just go home.
Right. So we can expect around 5 games per match, right? Or per
Yeah, you're guaranteed 5 games,
Mhm.
and then of course if your robot does well, then you can play more games in like the semifinals and finals.
Right. And I think we were just kind of looking on first in the website, and there was like for the robot there was an inspection checklist, and it had team and inspector. Do we need to fill out the team part before getting there, or do we do that in front of them?
Uh, I'm not too sure, but I believe last year we did finish one of the inspections by ourselves as a team, and
Mhm.
yeah, I think we did fill it out. But if you didn't, I believe you could still do it at the competition. But again, it's just like might as well do it before. So like you can, if there's any issues or if you don't meet one of the requirements, you can address it.
Right. And you were talking about having some sort of display out, like a banner or a board or something of a similar. So, what are some key components that you think we should include, or any rookie team should include in something like that?
Yeah, so I'd say the banner is one of the biggest things, like to display your team number and where you guys are from. If you have a website, you should definitely put like a QR code or something like that.
Mhm.
And then most teams have like a poster board or something like that, like a trifold poster where they display like hardware, software, outreach, different parts, like different aspects of their team.
Mhm.
It's kind of like your portfolio, but on a poster board rather than like a normal notebook or something like that. Some teams even put like set up monitors where they have like a slideshow constantly going through, displaying their team's like achievements throughout the season, like how they grew as a team, things like that, or outreach events. Um, and then some teams even bring their own 3D printer and like
Oh,
3D print random things. Yeah.
right. So we've heard that judges kind of walk around the pit sometimes, and they like stop by your board if they have any questions. So, do you recommend there should always be 1 or 2 members at your station in case they come by?
Yeah, I'd say you should at least have like one member from each sub team still there so that if there's any questions that get asked regarding any topic by the judges, someone's always there to respond.
Mhm.
But the rest of the team should definitely go out and go scout other teams. Generally, there will be like other teams, team representatives who are still staying at their booth, and they're free to ask questions and things like that. So you can get to know like teams, what their robot capabilities are. Some teams even bring out like a small sheet where they display like how many points they predict their robot to score. And yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So the next question was kind of in relating to the actual judging presentation.
Mhm.
So, what sort of questions do judges generally ask? Are they more like generalized soft skill questions, or more about the robot, or what can we expect from that?
I think you can expect like a whole variety of questions. Um, it's like all fair play, though they can ask anybody anything. So even if say I'm the hardware captain, I could still get asked an outreach question or a software question. So I think it's really important that every member knows at least a basic generalization like of each topic. Um, it's sometimes I'd say it's like specific questions like regarding say why did you choose like to go with this certain intake rather than another intake. So if you're like a software member and you get asked a hardware question, I'd suggest the best way to play it off is just talk a little bit about it and then be like, oh, someone from the hardware member like this the hardware captain can expand more on. And it's kind of an easy way to get out of the situation, but also act like, you're still engaged in other categories of the team.
That makes sense. So, would you say like, do judges actually like go and ask one person targeted those sort of questions like at certain points?
Yeah, they sometimes do, especially if you're someone on the team that's kind of like a quiet, reserved person.
Mhm.
So if you're not talking a lot, they really want to see that everyone on the team is participating and everyone knows what they're doing. They want to see, like, obviously it's a team. It's like when you're building the robot, it's all through teamwork, and every like when you're building the robot, it should be an equal distribution of work and things like that. So they want to see that even in the judging sessions. So it can't just be one person answering all the hardware questions or one person answering all the software questions. It should be distributed evenly. And if you as a team captain or anyone on the team sees that, this certain person is not like participating enough, I would just draw them into the question uh, oh, so and so, can you expand more on this? And then they'll be forced to respond.
Yeah, so when we were practicing like judging questions yesterday, what we found was that in the 10-minute session, we would go on answering one question for around 4 to 5 minutes, and then that would take a really long time. So do you recommend trying to only have 2 or 3 people talk at a time, or do you think it's fine to elaborate, or what are your thoughts on that?
I'd say at most you should have only 2 people answering per question and limit it to maybe like 45 seconds to a minute. It
Mhm.
should not go on for 4 minutes because judges will have a lot of questions. And that 10 minutes is really a time for you as a team to show the judges like what you've done as a team. And I'm sure they'll ask a lot of questions about like your design, what like last year they asked some random question about like do you have a name for your team robot? So just different things like, yeah, but definitely limit to only like 45 seconds to a minute because it's really a time for you to shine as a team and show what you're capable of or what you've done so far.
Mhm. Yeah, so what we found with that though was like if they asked, for example, what was the biggest challenge you faced, a lot of the questions we were only answering like the technical side, and the non-technical side wasn't getting like as much talking. So do you think we should do like one person from the technical side talks and then one person from non-technical talks, or how would you recommend doing that?
Um, yeah, I think one at least one person from each for like in terms of technical and non-technical should speak.
Mhm.
Uh, it should, yeah, like you said, it should be an even distribution of like what you've done so far. And
Right.
like when answering questions, you shouldn't be like showing one side of like the answer rather than both sides. Like you should describe everything, but in a short and concise way too.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes a lot more sense. So, kind of talking about the engineering portfolio, we're kind of scrambling to finish it now, but what are like some very key things that you would recommend having in the engineering portfolio, the must-haves?
Must-haves, I'd say are definitely if you have any sponsors, you should definitely list them. Of course, hardware slides regarding whatever mechanisms you've built, software, and especially for hardware and software, I really suggest doing rather than doing a lot of text and describing things, it should be more visual for the judges because judges won't be able to read every single if you write like a whole essay on one page regarding like hardware, like, oh, this mechanism does so and so, we did this, blah blah blah, it's the judges kind of lose interest. So diagrams are a quick and easy way for judges to like look at an image and they'll know right away like, oh, this is for this mechanism or this diagram I know is meant for picking up cones or things like that. So definitely diagrams. If you have any CADs, you should include CADs. And then for outreach, I'd say the biggest part of the portfolio is outreach. Majority of the slides, like maybe 4 or 5 slides, should be mainly all outreach, describing what you've done as a team for outreach, show images of outreach events, like you're describing like, oh, I volunteered at a certain event, then show an image that of you and your team like volunteering at that event. And yeah, I guess those are my must-have. And then also a general overview of the robot, like just an image of the robot, show like, oh, this is our robot, we named it blah blah blah. This is our predicted teleop points. These are our predicted autonomous points, and this is our final score. Yeah.
And for the actual match itself, so from our understanding, there's 2 drivers and 1 coach, right, per match.
Yeah.
So do you recommend keeping those people the same, or have you seen like they generally wear out, or like how do you think is best? What do you think is best to go on that split?
I think that you should definitely keep them the same drivers.
Mhm.
Um, I'd say if you switch around too much, you kind of lose that chemistry and feel for like robot, for the robot and driving the robot around. And when you do choose the two people who are your drivers, make sure they do like practice before the actual competition. So you want to have like delegated meetings just for those two people to do trial runs and things like that. So like they can like work out things together before the competition rather than you kind of just like throw them in there and be like, oh, start driving this robot, but then they don't have like a good communication or like plan or whatever they want to do as a driver. So definitely keep them the same.
So we can have the student coach also there, like talking to them during the actual match, right? On like what to do and where, or
Yeah, so I think there's generally two drivers, one coach, and one other player who's kind of just doing whatever. So I think in this competition, it's like they're placing the cones um during the teleop period, and um that extra person like who's also placing the cones should also be announcing to the drivers like time intervals. So like if you see that, oh, it's starting to like end game is starting in like 2 or 3 seconds, you should announce it to your drivers so they know exactly how much time they have left. uh or like they need to know like how much time is left in order to park in a certain spot during end game, so that you can get extra points at the end.
Mhm. Would you recommend keeping the human player and the coach the same as well throughout all five?
Yeah, I think so because like again, just chemistry with the drivers and everything like that.
And generally, do you recommend printing out pages of the journal and also giving those to the judges, or is the engineering portfolio the only thing they would really look at?
You should definitely print out the journal. It's not as used, like it's not weight as much as a portfolio. So if you guys like you said, if you guys are scrambling right now for the portfolio to finish, definitely focus more on the portfolio rather than the engineering journal.
Mhm.
But yeah, definitely have that still. So that if judges want to look at it, like they might just pop out at random, like and be like, oh, what's this? Is this your journal? And then they just start looking over it at your pit. So definitely have that available. And also for your journal and portfolio, have 2 copies of each.
Okay, two.
Yeah, two. So that sometimes people from other teams might ask, oh, can I look over your portfolio? So then while that is in use, you also want to have a spare just in case a judge or someone else comes and asks for your portfolio also. Or just it's just a backup. If you lose it, you don't know what can happen. So
Right.
that was good to have too.
So for our journal, I mean, as of now, we have all the information, but it's not like completely cleaned up yet. So say for some reason we're not able to finish cleaning it up by the time of the competition, would you recommend still bringing what we have so far, or would you recommend not bringing it at all?
I definitely bring it.
Mhm.
Um, anything is better than nothing.
Right.
And as long as you can show like something to the judges that, this is what we did at this meeting, or show like how you guys developed your robot or as a team, developed as a team, it's just important to show that. It doesn't matter about formatting or cleaning up things. I think
Okay.
it's more important to like display information.
And then this question, it's more about like the alliance markers. So we need to have two alliance markers, one on each side of the robot. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And in the rules, they said it should be around 2.5 inches length and 2.5 inches width, and then the same thing for the diameter, 2.5 inches. So
hmm
if we do choose to laminate ours, it would probably be like a little bit bigger than 2.5. So would they be looking at the dimensions for the alliance marker itself, or the dimensions of the alliance and the lamination total?
Um, wait, is it a limit of 2.5 inches? Like is that the maximum or minimum?
No, it's plus or minus 0.25, so 2.25.
Like, honestly, they're like really lenient, I think, in terms of dimensions for like alliance stickers. I know last year we kind of had like for our team numbers, we were at like 2.3 centimeters, 2.3 inches rather than 2.5, and they kind of just let it go. So
Okay.
yeah, as long as you're like within that area and they can see your alliance markers well enough, you should be fine.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you recommend like rebooting and restarting the control hub like a few days before the competition so that we have the latest software, or do you recommend just like leaving it as is in case everything gets renamed? Because we've had that problem in the past. We weren't sure.
So I'm pretty sure you need like the 8.0 software for this season. So if you have that, that's all you really need. As like the 8.1 is just really just bug fixes and all that. So if the 8.0 software works for you, then that's all you really need. But I would suggest upgrading to the later software maybe after the competition, just in case there's really any problems that shoot up. You don't really use up too much time doing that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's gonna be a full day, right? Pretty much like from morning to night.
Yeah.
And then there's no like set lunch break or like dinner break or anything like that.
There's
Between qualification number 4 and 5,
Mhm.
there's 16 teams. So after qualification number 4, all the teams will have played at least once.
Right.
There's usually a lunch break between 4 and 5,
Okay. Yeah.
but it's not provided. You have to get your own lunch.
Mhm. And then how much space do we have like to put up our things like where like the outlet is and like in the pit? So like will there be place like sit and like spend time there, or how much space generally can we expect?
So usually they're like schools, like high schools, and the in the pit area where you're gonna be like storing all of your stuff. Do you know like the Costco tables?
like the white tables,
The white tables,
like
yeah.
the foldable white tables.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's about like what you get,
Mhm.
about that much of space, and you can keep like whatever you have, like a trifold, maybe a monitor, and then also one other thing is getting like a long, I'm not sure what, I think like adapter wires, because at our first competition, there's an outlet like right next to us. But at our second competition, it was really far away, and we got lucky that we bought like tons of those like Christmas light adapter stuff, just so that it could reach all the way.
Bring cable extenders.
Yeah, cable
and also I believe it's called, what is that, like power splitters, like plug, like you know how there will be only like one outlet per team, but you're gonna have to charge multiple things at one time,
Like your
like your
batteries, your
battery,
phone.
yeah, things like that. So make sure you bring a power splitter, so like one outlet can become 3 outlets, and then you can charge things like that.
Okay. And then would we need to bring like our own chairs, or would those all be provided by the competition?
Generally there's bleachers and things like that. And I don't think there's a lot of sitting down. It's mostly just you just have to stand up when you're like presenting, or even at the pit.
Yeah, usually teams don't really bring chairs. Is like there's probably like seats outside if you want to sit down, or yeah, there's bleachers in all like the high school gyms, and yeah.
And is the judging presentation generally done before all of the robot games start, or can it be like between 2 games or 3 games?
So how the event works is at the very morning you come, you sign in, you do all of that. I think there's like an hour of you can like get-togethers or for any late teams, and then you start judging and robot and field inspection. So I think they give you a assigned time at some events, or at some events it could just be first come first serve. But yeah, you have you, I think yeah, for judging sessions, there's assigned times that you must go to the judging room for, and that's all in like a paper they give to you at the start, a check-in, and and in the times that you're not being judged, you have to go through robot and field inspection, and that's probably for the first 3 or so hours of the competition, and then after all teams have completed robot and field inspection, they generate like schedules, and then and then the robot game starts.
Okay, so the judging will all be done before the robot game.
Yeah.
Okay.
But awards, for example, like the Inspire Award, where partial of it is, of course, from like your robot performance, since it combines all the different awards and robot performance together. That they can still be like judging you during the matches. Like for Control Award, they could ask you like, oh, how are your control mechanisms doing during the game? But like the literal like presentation judging happens at the very beginning.
And how do you recommend like showing the judges that we're showing gracious professionalism, like not just in the judging area, but like throughout the competition? Like, is there something unique that we need to show them?
I can't confirm this, but I think that each of the volunteers, if they find the team to be like extraordinary, or like for example in Robot Inspector, I was a Robot Inspector at one of the earlier comps, and I was told to say like, if say a team lends another team a power switch, something that a lot of teams forget for the first competition because they don't know they need it, then maybe like, take that into account for judging for gracious professionalism, stuff like that. So different staff at the event can suggest to the judges, like volunteers can suggest to the judges, you're showing gracious professionalism. But the main thing what that principle is to show it really no matter what, no matter if you're really like, if you're being judged for it or not. So I guess just do whatever you normally do. And if it's really shown, they'll understand. Do you guys have like a switch where you plug one into your battery and one into like the other cord that connects to your control hub where?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's that one. Just so that the referees can easily turn off your robot if it goes haywire.
Okay, sounds good. And that one, they said like it has to be mounted or something, right?
Yeah, it just has to be connected to your robot and in a place where, say your robot goes crazy, the judges can easily spot it with the sticker you put on it and also turn it off. It's not like, deep under your control hub or something where it takes a while and they can't click it off.
Okay, so it doesn't like if we put Velcro on it, it doesn't have to necessarily be like mounted with nuts and screws and.
Yeah, you can even like tape it down with duct tape. It just has to mount it. I'm pretty sure just means it stays on. It's stable.
Right. So you mentioned you need to put a sticker on the switch. What was that about?
Oh yeah, so in the robot inspection checklist, it should have all of this, but there's two stickers you need. One is kind of optional, but you need one sticker that shows where your power switch is. So I think it's in the game manual, but there's like or I think you can make it even your own or just like write power switch on a piece of paper and tape it onto your robot. So that's just for in case, your robot goes haywire, they can easily spot it. But yeah, I think it's in the game manual. Just check the robot inspection sheet. And the second one is if your robot moves in it, like say you have to move a servo up to make sure you're inside the 18 by 18 cube that you need to be in the start of the match, then you need to have a sticker on the servo that literally moves and that the motor is gonna and the servo is gonna move up during initialization.
But for both of those, we can also just use a piece of paper and write it down or print it down, right?
Yeah. I mean, they have stuff in and I'm also pretty sure that at least at most competitions, they have like sticker paper and they have both of those stickers, but I wouldn't rely on that, but you can always replace it with that later. Or
So-
you can just print out a picture of it and tape it on.
Okay, so you would recommend doing that before getting to the competition, right? You wouldn't want to do that there. Okay.
Like at maximum like the night before the competition, you need to make sure to go over the robot inspection sheet provided in I think it's game manual 1 and just make sure that your robot follows all of that, because if there's like one of the main ones, for example like the power switch, your robot can't compete, that's kind of worthless. And many of the items, like say you don't bring it with you, it'll be really tough unless other teams like have it with them like an extra.
And then what are some important like parts of software that we should include in our presentation and portfolio?
So for software, I would suggest not, like using up too much time in your portfolio for that, because you have your own control award, but of course you still need stuff. But most of your in-depth detail, not in-depth, but like your software details should go within your control award application. And for your portfolio, I would suggest like, maybe you have a control mechanism like PID, right? Then you would include that, talk about how it helps your robot, and maybe include like a flow chart, like visuals such as that, or like maybe one thing we did last year is we did like a software, like if we had an error, I think debugging problem. So like say we found an error, right? Like our robot didn't work or something didn't work in software, or it's kind of like our a flow chart of what we would go through, like checking if the battery is fully charged, stuff like that. More like visuals. I'd highly suggest against keeping like code snippets, because most of the judges there are volunteers. I don't think they'll really understand, like encoders, like if you're putting that in the code.
Right.
And also like unique things about your robot. Like what if you have, something that other teams may not have? Like all that kind of stuff should go into your portfolio for software.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. For the alliance markers, they said like on the I think it's a game, it has to be like 3 inches away from your team number. Do they like actually like regulate that? Like would they actually like measure it, or is that just the recommendation?
I think that's a recommendation, but it's all up to like the people at the event. Yeah, I was robot inspector for one event, and I don't think they really regulated that. But you never know. It's better just to keep it 3 inches away, because you know.
And similarly for our alliance marker, I think they said it was like 2.5 plus or minus 0.25. So for something like that, if it goes like to 2.6 or 2.7, it wouldn't be like an automatic disqualification, right? As long as it was
So
kind of
anything in robot inspection, say you're like slightly off, or it doesn't give you like a advantage, like if you had like, of course, like a bigger battery, or like a battery that has like better volts, or like a better fuse, stuff like that, that automatically disqualify you. Power switch is one of like the kind of like the dumb ones that you can get automatically disqualified for. But for the rest of the stuff, like for example, your team number, if it's like maybe like an inch smaller, they might tell you to, for the next competition, to what's it called, improve upon this,
Mhm.
or like they'll tell you what to fix, but they won't disqualify you. Like, of course, they want you to compete,
right.
especially for a rookie team. Like I don't think they'll really disqualify you for much,
Okay,
except
so
for,
it's
yeah, the
it's
crazy.
okay if the alliance marker is a little bit off.
Yeah, that's fine. But they might tell you to fix it for the next qualifier, and say the robot inspector was the same person, then they might be able to disqualify you. But that's after they warn you at least once.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, is there like any last minute advice that you want to say or overall?
Um, I'd probably say just expect the unexpected, because last year we came into like our first competition expecting to be like close to last place, and we got second place. So like you never know what's gonna happen. So just like don't lose hope. Yeah, inspirational. Very
Sounds good. So then thank you. I'm gonna end the meeting now then. Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.